Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, I hope that you are doing alright. So, in the previous meeting, we've already discussed that in Pragmatics, there is an appeal to the idea that speakers assume certain information is already known by their listeners. Such information will not generally be stated, and consequently will count as part of what is communicated but not said. And today, we are going to talk about presupposition and entailment. But before that, let me introduce the members of the group. There are Alifia Putri Saptiadi, me, Dian Ari Safitri, Ulya Raisya Tiara, Isthi, Amalia, Dzikri, and also Safira Nur Fitriani. So, without further ado, let's go to the material. My name is Dian Ari Safitri, and I'm going to explain about presupposition. So, what is presupposition? There are several definitions by experts about it. First, it is an assumption generated by a speaker prior to making an utterance. It is a meaning considered given without being stated in an utterance. It is also a presumed to be shared belief that is taken for granted by the speaker and are expected to be used for interpreting the message. So, from these definitions, we can conclude that presupposition is the background information of an utterance. And since this information is assumed to be known by the listeners, it is not stated in an utterance. In a simple way, if you want to say something, you must have an assumption or a guess in your mind about the things that you are going to say, right? And that's what we call presupposition. Here, I put one of the example of presupposition. If there is an utterance, Sarah's brother ate 3 chocolate bars. There are several assumptions which were made before making such utterance. The assumptions are, first, there is a person called Sarah, and she has a brother. The speaker may also hold more specific presuppositions such as, Sarah has only one brother, and he likes sweets. These are the speaker's presupposition, and all of them can be wrong. But it doesn't really matter because we only focus on the utterance here, that Sarah's brother ate 3 chocolate bars. Oftentimes, presupposition is treated as a relationship between two propositions, and it is connected by the symbol here. For instance, if the first sentence, Lily's brother is handsome, contains the proposition P, and the second sentence, Lily has a brother contains the proposition Q, then we can conclude that P presupposes Q. Now, one of the characteristics of presupposition is constancy under negation. It means that the presupposition of an utterance will remain the same, even when the statements or the utterance is negated. Let's take a look at the example here. Suppose that the first and second sentence is spoken by 2 different people. The first person said, she is going to the class, and the second person said, she is not going to the class. Notice that even though both speakers disagree about the validity of proposition P, they both assume the truth of proposition Q, that she has a schedule in both of their statements. So, the proposition of Q is remaining the same under negation. It presupposes P and not P. And that's all from me. The next material will be delivered by Safira. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Safira Nur Fitriani with student number 28, and I will continue the material about presupposition. In the analysis of how speakers' assumption, presupposition has been associated with words, phrases, and structures. Then there are types to differentiate presuppositions. First is non-factive presupposition. Well, not all presuppositions are assumed to be true. There are examples of presuppositions that assume not to be true too, and it is included in non-factive presupposition. This presupposition type associated with verbs like dream, imagine, and pretend. For example, I dreamed that I was rich. Then the presupposition is, I was not rich, for I only dream about being rich. Next, there is existential presupposition. Almost presupposition examples we know have possessive construction in English that's associated with a presupposition of existence. However, in existential presupposition, it is not only assumed to be present in possessive construction. For instance, Mary's dog that have presupposition that Mary has a dog. It is also assumed more generally in any definite noun phrase. For instance, by using any of the expression in this example, the King of Sweden, the cat, the girl next door, and the counting crows, the speaker is assumed to be committed to the existence of one of the entities named. And then the third type of presupposition I will explain is factive presupposition. In previous meeting, Mr. Imam provided us with example of presupposition of John is smart. In an utterance, everybody knows that John is smart. Well, the presupposed information following by verb like know can be treated as factive presupposition. Not only know, there are numbers of other verbs such as realize, regret, as well as phrases involving be with aware, ought, and glad have factive presupposition. For instance, she didn't realize he was ill. Then the presupposition is he was ill. Or in another example, I'm glad that it's over have presupposition it's over. And that's all from me. However, there are still some types of presupposition that will explain by my friend Nur Alifia.
Hi, my name is Alifia Putri Saptiadi and my student number is 16. So following the types that have been mentioned by Safira are lexical presupposition, structural presupposition, and counterfactual presupposition. First, in lexical presupposition, the speaker's use of a particular expression is taken to presuppose another unstated concept, like here in the example, he stopped smoking, mean that its unstated presupposition is he used to smoke. Jadi ketika pendengarnya mendapatkan informasi bahwa dia laki-laki berhenti merokok, pendengar juga mendapat informasi yang unstated bahwa dia laki-laki dulunya adalah perokok. Second, the structural presuppositions, and in this case, certain sentence structures have been analyzed as conventionally and regularly, presupposing that part of the structure is assumed to be true. Jadi info yang didapatkan oleh pendengar ini sudah diasumsikan kebenarannya. For example here, when did he leave? The presupposition being he left. Jadi ketika pendengar nangkap pertanyaan kapan dia laki-laki pergi, si pendengar juga sudah langsung bisa berasumsi bahwa oh dia laki-laki ini beneran pergi. And the last is the counterfactual presupposition, meaning that what is presupposed is not only not true, but is opposite of what is true, or contrary to the facts. For example, if you were my friend, you would have helped me, and then the presupposition being you are not my friend. Karena di situ pakai if, jika itu dimana sering jadi penanda buat sesuatu yang bukan kebenarannya gitu loh, kayak sesuatu yang nggak terjadi gitu. Kalau jika, jadi makanya karena kalau kamu adalah temanku, kamu pasti bantu aku, dan karena ini dikasih kalau, berarti tandanya kamu ini bukan temanku, jadi ujung-ujungnya nggak bantu aku. And so I have explained other three types of presuppositions, and those are lexical, structural, and counterfactual. I think that is all I can deliver. Ulya will cover the next materials. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Alifia for the material. So I will continue with the projection problem. So in this presupposition and entailment, there is the projection problem. Since there is a basic expectation that the presupposition of a simple sentence will continue to be true when that simple sentence becomes part of a more complex sentence. And sometimes the meaning of the some presupposition as the parts doesn't survive to become the meaning of some complex sentence as a whole. So this problems is called the projection problem. Okay, next slide. So after explaining about the projection problem meaning, I will give you the examples to make you understand more clear. In this previous problem, usually that we are going to see what happens to the presupposition, which is assumed to be true in the simple structure, but which does not project into the complex structure. So beside me there is two sentences, which is between Shirley and Jane. Shirley said, "It's so sad, George regret getting Mary pregnant." And Jane's answered, "But he didn't get her pregnant, we know that now." So if we combine that two of utterance, we have the sequence that George regrets getting Mary pregnant, but he didn't get her pregnant. That to identify the different preposition involved. So the second paragraph, we can say that the presupposition that is George got Mary pregnant does not survive as presupposition of the combined utterance in the A, that is George regret getting Mary pregnant, but he didn't get her pregnant. So one way to think about the whole sentence present in the George regrets getting Mary pregnant, but he didn't get her pregnant, is as an utterance by a person reporting that what happened in the soap opera that day. That person won't assume the presupposition Q, that is that George got Mary pregnant, is true when uttering the A, or the George regret getting Mary pregnant, but he didn't get her pregnant. In the example sentence, Jane utterance of he didn't get her pregnant actually entails the George didn't get Mary pregnant as a logical consequence. Thus, when the person who watched the soap opera tells you that George regrets getting Mary pregnant, but he didn't get her pregnant, you have a presupposition Q and an entailment not Q. So the entailment, the unnecessary consequence of what is said, is simply more powerful than the presupposition, which is an early assumption. And then the power of entailment is not just that, it can also be used to cancel the existential presupposition. Normally, we assume that the person used a definite expression of the type the X. For example, the King of England. So, we repeat, the King of England is the X. He or she presupposes of existence of the entity described, as in the utterance that the King of England visited us. Also, in any utterance of the form X, or in this matter, the King of England doesn't exist. As in the sentence, the King of England doesn't exist, there is an entailment that there is no X or the King of England. But does the speaker of which is said the King of England doesn't exist also still have the presupposition of the existence of the entity described? So, instead of thinking that a speaker who utters 15b or the King of England doesn't exist simultaneously believes that there is a King of England, which is the presupposition, and that there is not a King of England, which is the entailment, we recognize that the entailment is more powerful than presupposition. So we can abandon the existential presupposition. So I think that's all for me. I'm sorry if there is any mistake in my explanation. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. And the next material will be delivered by Tiara.
Hello folks, my name is Tiara and I would like to explain you about the ordered entailments. But before that, I would like to remind you, do you still remember what is entailment? Okay, so the concept of the entailment is that entailment is a concept that refers to specific kind of relationship between two sentences. Remember, sentences, not speakers. So more specifically, entailment means that if one sentence is true, then the other sentence must also be true. The second sentence would be entailed by the first sentence. Another way to prove entailment between two sentences is to demonstrate that if the one sentence is false, then the other sentence must also be false. Entailment is closely related to the concept of logical consequence. Within logic, the idea if A is true, then B must be true is nothing other than a form of entailment. And last ordered is that the ordered of entailment. So the ordered of entailment is considered a purely logical concept and is symbolized with second Roman numerals. Alright, for this slide, I will provide you an example. So as you can see here that the sentence saying that Bob ate 3 sandwiches. So as you can see that from the A into D, that is the entailment. The entailments can show in various. The thing is, it match to the first sentence, and that's why his Bob ate 3 sandwiches entails someone ate 3 sandwiches, or could be Bob did something to the 3 sandwiches. And so for the symbolize for the PQRST, we can say that P entails Q. We can symbolize it with the second P, second Roman numerals within Q. Moving on, according to Wilson and Spavor, saying that when people are producing sentences, they will automatically construct an ordered set of foreground and background entailments. In his pragmatic book, there's a rule saying that about 2 kinds of entailments, that is background and foreground, and we will discuss it more specifically about the background and foreground entailments on the next slide. Okay, the next one is types of entailments. So there is 2 types for this entailments. Is that the first one is a background and the second one is a foreground. So the definition, as you can see here, is that background entailment is that is indicated when a sentence is true. It is necessarily related to the truth of a number of entailments. So basically, the example that we can provide for the background is that the previous one, we can say that Bob ate 3 sandwiches. All of the entailments is really required to the sentence, and that's why if the first sentence is true, then the entailments should be also true. And for the second one is a foreground. So the foreground is contributes to main point of the sentence. So Yule in his pragmatic book at that foreground entailments is the main assumption of the speaker. We can also know about the foreground entailment within the additional of the stretching or within clefting. We can explain it more through the next slide. Okay, so the first special linguistic devices that could indicate the foreground entailment is that clefting, or you could say that it cleft. So basically, it cleft used to help people to focus on the particular part of the sentence and to emphasize what people want to say. So here the example is that the first sentence saying that it was Robert that chased those girls. And number 2 is that it wasn't me who took your money. So there is an addition, the addition of the new part of the sentence, that is, it was and it wasn't. Why we use this? Because in crafting, the words, the addition of the it was and it wasn't is used in order to gain the hearer's attention. Like we want to say something that the most important part, we will crafting it with the additional. So that's why the hearers will focus on the first thought that we would like to say, and that is for the crafting. Alright, for the second and last of special linguistic devices which could indicate the foreground entailment is that stressing. So here, Yule argues that a speaker sometimes will give stress in their utterance. The stress part can be assumed as the foreground, which is very useful to help the hearer in interpreting the intended meaning of the speaker. As you can see that the example above saying that the first sentence, Robert chased 3 squirrels, and the second sentence is that Robert chased 3 squirrels. So both sentences share the same grammatical structure. However, the capitalized words indicate the different intention of the speaker. So as you can see here that the stressed one in the first sentence is that 3, and the second one is Robert. So basically, for you are confused to differentiate between stressing and crafting, is that crafting adding with some words like it was or it wasn't, like the previous example before. But for the entailment is that we give a stress in the utterance in order that the hearer know what is the most important part in the utterance or the sentence that we utter. Just like when I see something that amazing, it's like, oh wow, look at that book. I wouldn't wanna people to hear the book part, because that is the important one. And just like that, we can give a stress in order that people will know that the stressing part or the most important part, 2 words which I'm saying before, is that the book one. And that's why here, as you can see, that the capitalized words show that the speaker tries to give stress on the part as those are most important part of each sentence. That's all for me and for our group presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.